Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another Glacial Geek Deep Thoughts, Thin Coats with me, Phil the Glacial Geek. Today, I want to start off the program actually with a little bit of show and tell. Just show off a little bit what I've done, what some other people have done, and some new occurrences in the world of the Glacial Geek. And then we will delve into the topic at hand and some of my thin coats, which will probably just be priming today, but you'll see how it comes along. So the first thing I want to show off is the things that you can see in this here. I want to show off a commission job that was done for me by Shades of War Studios. These guys contacted me, wanted to do something for the channel, which is really fantastic, and we decided to do something for my for my Gene Stealer cult, and it came out awesome. They did a Chimera here, which looks great, using the like I had with the crossing out the Imperial emblem or images with the red paint marks, which is really cool. Doing some cool weathering on them, which is awesome, and even have the like the little Gene Stealer culty head on the guy there. And then he did a squad of neophytes in the style of the guardsmen that they have with their cool heads, and he gave two of them the flamer, which is really freaking cool. So I've got a flamer squad, which is awesome, with the leader. He did a fantastic job on these. I am beyond excited about these guys, getting ready to get them onto the table. I will have them in a battle report hopefully soon. I've got a few in the bag right now, so if you're just watching this when this comes out, it'll be a little while, but when I get them out, I will be sure to point it out again, because I am super excited about these. You can check them out. They are on Facebook. Just look up Shades of War Studios, or on Instagram, which is where I got in contact with them, which is Shades_of_wars_war_studios, not wars, Shades of War Studios, and underscore in between each of those words. All lowercase for Instagram, and you can check them out there. Really good guys. Did some really fantastic work here, and sent me a piece of fan work. Check this out. How cool is that? Super awesome. It's me as a Dark Angels Space Marine being awesome. So I really freaking enjoy that. I think that looks super cool. So from the Chainsword Diaries, art by TCDG. So really thankful for that. You guys, above and beyond, super fantastic. Really, thank you so much. It was fantastic, and I really love these guys, and I can't wait to get them on the table with the rest of my Gene Stealer cult. So, so I just wanted to show them off. I also wanted to show off something that I was working on, which is my Shadespire Chosen Axes. So I painted these guys up. It was a ton of fun, actually, to paint these guys. They were fun to paint. They really were. So if you guys are looking into getting into Shadespire, the models are fun to paint. Although it was funny because I knew I was going to be doing orange for the beards and the plumes, and they come with that orange plastic. And I was like, oh man, I don't want to prime it, but I did. But yeah, they came out really well, and I'm really excited about getting into this. I have a couple friends here who are getting into it, and so we're going to start hopefully getting better, because I'm going to be in the Nova competition for it, the competition at Nova, the Nova Open. So we'll see how it goes. So I've got the guys painted up, and now I've just got to learn how to play them well. I got to get good, as they say. And by they, I mean me. So I got those guys. Another thing I want to show off, which is a really cool thing, is Hammerhead Games are doing this. They have these available. I have the link in the description below for what they are. And basically, it's a couple Glacial Geek design logo items that they have. So this is the measuring tool that they have, and it's awesome because it's got a 9-inch side for determining deep strike, which is super helpful. That has been worth its weight in gold. You got 3 inches, which is great because you can tell about pile-ins and consolidations and heroic interventions, which is great. You got 6 inches, which is pretty standard movement for most, and then 2 inches for unit coherency. So you've got most of the basic measuring that you're going to have to do. You still need to measure, for measuring 48 inches. They're not going to give you a 48-inch plastic tool. That would be ridiculous. But This will get you through most of the minor move figuring out that you need to do for spacing, which is fantastic and super time saver. So you're not trying to get your hand in there and wrench around with the measuring tape, which I always have a tendency to bump models with that. At least this way, it's a little bit more sturdy, and I can move it where I need to into tighter spaces and whatnot. So super, super helpful. This has been a true lifesaver. They also have, you can see here, I'll show it in the small one because it's a little easier to see there, and I'll show it up here too. But this is the turn and command point counter, which is great because it doesn't use dice, which have a tendency to fall over on me, and I end up knocking them over all the time. So this way, you've got them locked into place, and you can tell them, and you can put it off to the side. And when it's down like that, you have to deliberately go over and move it. So it's pretty awesome. Keep track of your command points, which as they're getting more and more, and that's the thing, that's the mechanic now in 8th edition. So keeping track of them is pretty awesome with this. And they also have objective markers. So it comes with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they've got a Glacial Geek relic one, so you can fight over my face, which is pretty fun. Yeah, so they've been really cool. I've been using them. You probably saw them already in a battle report, and they'll be in more of my battle reports because I'm going to be using the crap out of those. So yeah, so that's the show and tell portion of the day. I hope you guys like it. I'm going to have links in the description below for Shades of War Studios. I'm going to have links below for these items, and you can check them out. And yeah, really, reach out. It's good stuff. So anyway, on to what we're going to be working on today. Today, I am actually going to be priming up some, oh my god, I was about to call them Death Watch, and then I was going to call them Death Wing. They're Death Company. Some Death Company dude bros that I've got here. I basically have the first 5 that I've done. So I've got 4 guys with chain swords and pistols, and I've got 1 guy with a thunder hammer in there. Essentially, the way I'm thinking about it is my sanguinary. These are, obviously for my blood angels. My sanguinary guard are really good at going in and hitting up some really tough targets, but they don't have quite the number of swings and attacks that I would want for attacking more chaff units, and they can easily get bogged down with a lot of that. So my Death Company, their job is to go up and shoot up and attack a lot of those chaff units. So screens, infantry blobs, anything like that. That's what they're there for. That's what they're designed to be taking down. So I've got them to do this. And I was thinking about, I'm always looking at ways to make things work for me further. And I wasn't sure about whether I should run these guys with jump packs, which I know is predominantly what I'm going to be running them as. But I have a friend who also runs them without them and runs them out of a Land Raider, which is pretty fantastic. And my Death Watch Land Raider would look really good with them. Could you imagine that with a Land Raider Crusader running up, wailing into something with a bunch of Hurricane Bolters, and then all of a sudden these guys start pouring out, 10 of these guys pour out and just start wailing into them with all their attacks. So I decided to magnetize the backpacks here so that I can run them as just dude bros on foot, or I can run them as dude bros with jump packs. So super easy job there. Takes up a fair amount of magnets, but it's totally worth it in my opinion. The only thing you had to drill was the one on the back here. You have to cut off the little nublin that they've got there for putting on backpacks, and you just drill into the body there and glue it in flush. And then the little alcove that they've got on the back here worked well for the magnets that I used. I used the magnet, so 3/32 by 1/16 inch. Let's see there. So you can see that there. That's the ones I've used, and they fit into the back of the regular backpacks perfectly, which is pretty fantastic. And then I just had to use a little bit of green stuff to get them to fit well into the backs of the jump packs. But otherwise, pretty simple job, pretty easy, and I was really very happy with how they turned out, which is pretty awesome. It's always nice when things work out the way you would imagine that they would, and as easily as you had hoped they would. So, yeah, a super simple job and a really easy job, and I think that's going to give me a little bit more utility out of them. I can just use them however I want, so it allows me to change things up if I want to go a little bit cheaper, or if I just want to run it with a Land Raider to start them up start them on the table to allow my Deep Strikers to come in. I think that would be a really helpful thing to run with them. So, yeah, so what I'm going to be doing today is just priming these dude bros up, which should be good. As for our discussion, getting to that already at this point, I am going to be talking about diversity in your hobby, and I'm not talking about what I'm talking about is diversity within what you do with the hobby. So whether or not you just focus on one army in one game, or if you can expand to a lot of games, because in the wargaming community right now, there's a ton of different games that you can play. Everything from Dust Tactics to AOS to Relic Blade to there's dozens and dozens of war games out there, and all of them have their things that they do well, and all of them have their things that they're really cool at, but they all require some kind of monetary commitment to play with them. Some more than others. Like I have my dude bros for Shadespire. Honestly, all you need is the base set, and you're good to go. You've got 2 armies in there, so you can just play with your friends, and that's all you need to do that war game, which is fun. The models are easy to build and paint. It's a good way to go into it, which is cheaper. And then you have things like Warhammer, where you can have thousands and thousands of units that you can field. And you can also go into other things. There's larger and smaller commitments to a lot of these different types of games, and they can range. All of them can range as expensive as you want them to. But the question always comes is like, what is your money best spent on? Is it better spent on just having sticking to one single game or one single army so that you can have a wide diversity of units for it? Or do you just go in, build one force's worth of models, and then just move on to the next one? It depends upon really what you're looking to do. For me, most of what my wargaming has been Warhammer. I haven't really expanded into other systems. A lot of people have talked about them. And I've been sorely tempted many times, especially what they've been doing with AOS recently, with those snack ladies and the wet elves and the steampunk dwarves. All of those have seemed super cool and fun, but I can't. For me, because of the channel, I can't commit to doing those because I wouldn't be able to have a wide variety of units to run in battle reports unless I really committed a whole lot of resources to building them up. And I wouldn't be able to do that without being able to keep up with all of the stuff I'm doing. So a lot of the expansions, like with these Blood Angels, for instance, is because it allows me the ability to expand and run them in smaller detachments with what I already have, to have them in battle reports, which is my main concern. And most of you watching this are not going to have that concern, where you don't have to worry about diversity in games. You can run the same list over and over again with your friends because they're not going to care. They're going to just want to play you in the game. And the idea is to have fun with the game. But if I'm putting things onto battle reports, I need to keep things mixed up. I need to keep things changing. Otherwise, people get bored with it. You don't want to see the same list over and over and over again, because that gets boring to watch in a video. It's not necessarily boring to play. My competitive list doesn't vary very much. So it's basically running the same list over and over and over again. And I enjoy it. I have a lot of fun being able to run the same list over and over again. And sometimes I wish I could just run the same list over and over again. It would make my life a lot easier, if I'm being honest, being able to just run the same thing over and over again. You get to know a force, you get to know an army, in which case having a diversity of games is helpful in that, because what you can do is you can come up with a list that you want to play, that you want to build, that you want to have, build it, paint it, play it, and just keep playing that list instead of worrying about buying the next new hotness, instead of worrying about buying every single option that you can have within your army. If you've just got the one list, it allows you to play that army, get to know that army, get really good with that army. So if you find a really strong list that you enjoy playing that does well for you, there's nothing wrong with only having that one list worth of models. And most people don't, just because, let's be honest, we all really want to collect everything, but you can, and there's nothing wrong with that. You'd have just as much fun playing a game. Having a little bit of variety is helpful, but you can also do that at a more reasonable rate than necessarily I would, and be able to still have fun with your friends. And then you can go into other games as well and have the freedom then to choose whether you want to play, a 2,000 point game of Warhammer 40,000, which takes a long time to play, or if you just want to play a quick quick game of Shadespire or a quick game of Mordheim or Necromunda or anything like that. Or if you just get tired of playing Warhammer 40,000, you've got the opportunity to try something else. I know with board games that I usually like to try new games, and a lot of my friends, I have friends who are really into board games, and they've got a bunch of board games. And honestly, when given the chance, I usually ask to play a different game. I'll play whatever. I don't care if I play a game over and over again. But most of the time when I'm playing board games, I like to play a game that I haven't played before. Learn a new game, have fun with that, and move on to the next one, which is totally fine. In wargaming, it's a little harder to do that, and if you're running a channel, it's even harder. But you can do it. And what it allows you to do if you have multiple game systems is that, maybe if you play a bunch of Warhammer games, you get tired of that after a little while, so you move on to the next game. And the reality is that you need to ask yourself what it is you're looking to get out of the hobby. If you're looking for diving deep into something which is really a lot of fun, then you can just stick to one system. Read the book. So, for instance, Warhammer. That's my main Warhammer 40,000. Let's be honest. I read the books, the lore books. I read what's going on about them. I look up tactics. I build. I paint. I collect. I stick with it, and I develop my own storyline within my own armies and whatever I'm doing. And I enjoy that aspect of it. It's a really in-depth hobby at that point for me, and I enjoy that. I enjoy that aspect, that depth of enjoyment of it. But to some people, it's just a game. They just enjoy the fun game because it's a fun game to play. It's fun to get deep into it, but it's also just a fun game to play. You're basically it's very intellectual. You're bashing your heads against another player's strategies and trying to go head to head, and got the competition aspect of it, which is fun. But maybe for you, the kind of depth that you can get into with this kind of game isn't for you. Maybe you just want to be able to have fun with your friends on the weekends with it every once in a while, but you also want to be able to just try different things. Then do it. I have plenty of friends who have AOS armies, that have bolt action armies, that have what's the one I'm thinking? Necromunda armies, that they've got what's the one I'm thinking about? Malifaux. Malifaux is the one I was trying to think of. Malifaux armies, and they enjoy playing them, and they alternate week to week what they play because they don't have to put out a video battle report twice a week. It allows them the ability to reach out and try new things and have fun with the different aspects. And it also allows you at that point that you don't have to collect as much of the same army to have a kind of diversity in your on your hobby table, because I've painted a lot of Marines. And after a while, a Marine is a Marine, and you're painting them, you kind of get the same sense of what you're doing with them. And sometimes it's fun to try new things. And I think that's why I really enjoyed painting the Chosen Axes, was because they were different. They were something very, very different. I mean, very different from a Space Marine. And it was fun to paint them. I've never painted, they're essentially naked. They've got some loincloths going on, but otherwise they're essentially naked. I haven't painted that much, human flesh on a model ever, and it was fun to be able to try that. It comes with its own, its own troubles, because when you're just doing a face, it's a lot easier to just like slap on some, slap on a base and then slap on some Reikland flesh shade, and it looks good on a face. But just that on the body left me wanting a little bit. So on the whole body, so I had to go back and do some other layering up on it. I didn't do 1,000 different layers on it. I'm not looking to win best painted with these. They look good. I'm very happy with them, but they're not Golden Demon. That's never been my goal with my painting. But they're good, and they are it's a good paint job. But it allowed me to try something different, and I had to work with the flesh a lot more that I've never had to really do before, because everything else that I've painted is either some weird alien carapace, or it's power armor, or it's clothes, which are easier than painting flesh. So painting them up was something that was fun. It was cool. It was something different, and I really, really freaking enjoyed it. So I can understand wanting to have a little bit of diversity on your hobby table, and a good way to do that is to have models and everything from different systems, and a lot of the other systems don't require quite as much of a monetary commitment to model building as Warhammer does. Like Infinity, for instance. You can build small armies with that. You don't have to buy all the different options for your army to run them. Or you can, and honestly, you can probably have an entire range of models for some of the Infinity armies. You can buy the entire range of models and still have fewer models than one 2,000 point list of, say, guards. And they're different ones, but that's the whole game. It's a skirmish based game. It's a different type of game. It uses a D20, which is fun, using different systems. And that was always something I enjoyed about role playing. My friends that I would role play with up in Alaska, we would play a lot of different systems. Whereas my friends that I played role playing with when I was in New York, we would usually play one system and play the crap out of it. So we played a lot of World of Darkness when I was in New York, and I really, really loved it. I got really in depth with it, knew a lot about the world, knew a lot about what was going on, really developed a lot of my characters, specific characters that I had, and I developed them really, really well, and it was a lot of fun to play that. My friends that I would play in Alaska, we would alternate between systems a lot and play a lot of different systems. So we play the Star Wars system, we play Dungeon World, we play what's the one with the Weird West? Deadwood. Or Deadlands. Sorry, Deadlands. And it was fun. It was really cool to get into all those different systems. I would make new characters all the time, and it allowed you to change things. So, Deadlands is a Wild West theme. Star Wars is, Star Wars. Dungeon World is the high fantasy stuff. And it allowed me to try out a whole lot of different things, which is a lot of fun to be able to explore different worlds and whatnot. So you can do the same thing with wargaming as well if you just wanted to play in the different systems. So, Infinity has a really in-depth system. It started as a role-playing game, I think, that the creators were doing, and they created this miniature wargaming out of the world that they had created for their role-playing. And it was, it's kind of cool to see that kind of thing happen. So if you're looking for more of a diversity, you like different things, then yeah, expanding the realm in which you build and what you play is probably a good idea. You know what I mean? And honestly, if I wasn't as concerned as I am about being able to put out video content, I probably would be trying the different systems. Right now, AOS is freaking knocking it out of the park with these new armies that they've put together. Seriously, those Snack Ladies, those Steampunk Dwarves, the Wet Elves, all of those guys are fantastic. They look so cool, the models. The lore that they're developing from a lot of these guys is super cool. I would love to get into it, but the reality is that I can't commit to being able to put together a force that's big enough for me to have the kind of diversity that I would need in list to be able to put out content for it. And if I'm not, honestly, most of my gaming at this point, if not actually all of my gaming that I do nowadays, is basically for content for the channel. So if I can't do that, it makes it a little bit more difficult for me to put aside time to actually play the game. I'm hoping to do some stuff with the Shadespire, which is why I'm willing to commit to that. Also, the fact that I signed up for the tournament means I'll have to do it. So I can probably get some people to paint up their war bands. Looking at you, Todd. Paint together their war bands so I can do some videos with Shadespire, which would be a lot of fun. And if not, I've got a bunch of the war bands, so I might just end up painting up mine and making people play with my painted war bands. They can bring their decks, but they got to play with my painted ones. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it. Is that it really depends upon what you're looking to get out of it. So there's no right or wrong about it. So if you want to just have, if you just want to have the one army in the one system. So say you want to have Space Marines, you just want to have the Ultramarines in this, and you want to build up the entire chapter of Space Marines. That's freaking awesome. That's super cool. I could imagine just having an entire chapter of Space Marines around aligned on your table there, looking badass, looking super cool, and just being awesome. That would be great. That would be super fun. And you would know everything about them. They would have, stories. You could give them names, all of that stuff. And at that point, you're going really in depth into one aspect of one game, and that's super cool. You could have a ton of fun. You'll never get tired. I imagine I can't imagine you being able to paint up an entire chapter worth of models anytime soon. So it would give you plenty to work on the hobby side. It would give you plenty to work on in the game side, and you would have a lot of the ability to just run a whole bunch of really diverse lists with that one army, and you wouldn't get bored. You would have a lot of fun, and you could do a lot of things. I play mostly Gene Steel, most of the Dark Angels. I've got my Gene Steels and I got my Death Watch, and I don't get bored making lists. I don't get bored with the options that I have. The reason I'm expanding into other stuff is because I want to have more diverse stuff for the channel. I want to get more, and this going the way I do allows me to expand it at a reasonable pace as opposed to having to buy, 3,000 points worth of models and paint them up, and to be able to play them on the channel relatively often. So if I'm being honest with you, you could have a lot of fun just being very focused and very narrow with the gameplay and with how you pursue the hobby, because it's your time. And if you enjoy that, there's nothing wrong with that. That's what it's all about, is having fun and enjoying yourself. And if you're having fun and enjoying yourself, you're not doing it wrong. You're just not doing it wrong. The other realm is that there's a lot of things out there that are really cool. The story in AOS is really cool. The models that they've got for AOS are really cool. Infinity models look super fun. The gameplay and the world, especially the world building they've been doing with Infinity, is really cool. The concept of Malifaux is super creepy and awesome. A lot of the models look fun. You can also experience the diversity in building different models from different companies, because they all have their own design ways. So GW very much emphasizes the ease to build their models, whereas a lot of the ones like Malifaux are known for being a little bit spindly. So knowing that also is something to keep in mind going forward. Like, look at some of the models in firsthand before you dive fully into something. And at that point, you could try all these different worlds. You could try something a bit more, more historically based, like you can with Flames of War, or you can just keep going even, into the weird realms and just go into, like I said, you could also go over into, if you want something a little bit more exacting in its competitive nature, you can go into War Machine. They're very much more aligned for competitive play, the way they've got things worked out with the way they do cover, the way they do intervening models, all of that fun stuff. If that's your thing, then you can try something like that. They've got really cool models as well. The fact is that there's a lot of stuff out there that's really cool, that's really fun, and that would be a blast to be able to play and collect. And if that's what you want, you can do that and have a lot of fun building, buying, building, assembling, and collecting a bunch of different systems and getting to know them, And I think that it just depends upon what you're looking for. If you're looking for your hobby for something that, if you're looking for a depth of appreciation within your hobby, then I would stick to less options. So maybe choose one game, and maybe even just choose one faction within that game and build that out, and then really know that system, really know that game, really know that army, really know that list that you're building up. Expand it so you can exchange some things and keep a diverse list while still knowing the mechanics of your specific army, and you will be a better player for that, and having done that, because you will know your rules, you'll be able to know how to interact with your rules, and that'll make you probably a better player, if I'm being honest. Whereas you could also expand into doing multiple different armies. So for me, for instance, I main Warhammer 40k. Dark Angels is my main army. I've got more models painted up Dark Angels than any other one. But I've also got my Death Watch, and I've also got my Gene Stealer cult, and I'm expanding into other things. So I've got my little knight, my mini knight that I've got painted up. I've got some more of those that I've got to build and paint. I've also got some Blood Angels, some Inquisition, some of that stuff where I can expand into the Assassins, where it's easier to expand slightly from my core. So, for instance, my Assassins aren't Dark Angels, but they can run with my Dark Angels. If you're doing it the other way, if you've got Chaos Space Marines, you can also get Demons that run with them. So you don't have to go out and buy a full army right off the bat. You can have some of these fun allies in it that you can expand outwards and be able to utilize. It's harder to do if you've got some of the Xenos races, but you can do it with Eldar, so you can get a small Dark Eldar contingent, a small Harlequins contingent, But if you're running Tau, it's pretty tough to expand outside of the army unless you start a whole new army. Same thing with Necrons and Orcs. But at that point, you can choose the army that really entices you, that really draws you in, as opposed to trying to think about how do I expand from just doing these things. You can look into that. And at that point, if you've got a Tau army that you're playing and you wanted to do something new, but you just don't feel like doing a different army, then maybe you choose a different system. You know what I mean? So maybe you go out and buy a Shadespire Warband, and then you can play you can play Shadespire with your friends. Or maybe you go out and you just build a small contingent to go play in Shadow Wars or in Necromunda or something like that. Or you just go out and get a small force of Infinity that you can play. I think you can play them as small as like 50 points or something like that, or the way they've got theirs. It's designed to be skirmish, so you can play it as small as you really want, if I'm being honest. But you can play it as large, within reason, as large as you want with that too. You're not going to get apocalypse sized games of Infinity going on, but you can get quite a few models on the table there. Or Malifaux, you can do that, expand into Malifaux, do something like that if that's what you're looking to do, and it's easier at that point because, like I said, I can buy the models that I've got now for Blood Angels would be basically equivalent to what it would take to build up a force of Malifaux or build up a force of Infinity, because a lot of those you can buy like the army in a box when they come, and it comes with whatever models you would need to just run an army of that, and it's just one purchase that you can make, you build up, and you can play it, which is pretty fantastic and a great way to really expand and look at what you're doing with those. So, I think really when it comes down to it, you've got to look into what you want to get out of it and what's going to be easiest for you to do. So if you like learning new rules, like I am with board games, then maybe what you want to do is do different systems, but choose systems that are easier to do. So if you've got your main system, say 40k is your main system, maybe as opposed to trying to do an AOS army, which would require you to build an army of a basically equivalent size to your Warhammer army, you do a Malifaux force, because then you can buy the one box and you're probably okay to play with it. If you want to expand, you can, but you don't have to, and that might be able to fill your need for new rules, your need for something new, or an Infinity force or something like that. And then you get to play these different games, or you can buy one of each and be able to play any of the different games. And at that point, you're kind of enjoying all the different rules, learning different games, enjoying yourself and having fun that way. But if you like to really get in depth on things and you like to be an expert on something, then I would suggest choosing a single army and going with that, and going with a single game. So maybe not necessarily a single army, but a single game. So at that point, if you've got a Warhammer 40,000 army and you know the rules and you like knowing the rules and you like the fact that you know these back and forth in the back of your hand, then maybe your expansion goes into another army. You choose something else. Maybe something that can ally with what you've currently had so you can take it a little bit slower. Or something completely new if that's what you want. So that you can learn a whole new world and a whole new game and a whole new a way of playing while still having the core rules be the same. So it does require a little bit of inward thinking and knowing of yourself, what it is that you find enjoyment from, and going with it. So same thing with look at the way you play video games. There's some people that will put hundreds of hours into a game like Fallout, or there's some people that just want to play a couple minutes of COD and then run in and play a couple minutes of PUBG or a couple minutes of Fortnite, and they like to bounce around to different games and just put in a bunch of play a bunch of different games and have the experience of playing those different games and not necessarily becoming an MLG pro gamer, but being able to play all the different games and having the diversity of gameplay that you get with the different games and different systems. So look at it, see what it is that you find enjoyment from the hobby, and try to emphasize that. So if you like fresh newness, then maybe try a different system. If you like the familiar, but you wanted something a little bit new, maybe a new faction, maybe an allied faction, something like that you can expand out from and allow you to try something new without having to completely start fresh from square one. So yeah, that's what it comes down. I think both sides with a diversity of your hobby or not a diversity of your hobby is really going to be, either which one is going to be able to provide enjoyment, and either of those can be the right answer, but there is a right answer for you specifically, and only you can really come up with those, and you have to ask yourself those questions. And some of them can be hard, because you might be like, oh, no, I like playing anything, I've got no problem, I'm really easygoing. But then when you're being honest with yourself and you look into it and you look at the way the system goes and you look at the way everything goes, you go, no, you know what? I actually like knowing what I'm doing. I like knowing what I'm doing. I like knowing what I have to do. I like building an army that I know what it does. In that case, specialize. Maybe just instead of starting a new army or starting a new system, you just buy another unit for your army. Expand it out and get the new hotness, or try something different, or, just stick with that, because then you know your rules, you know what's going on, it's a little bit more familiar, and it allows you to then go out and enjoy yourself with the gameplay as opposed to having to learn something new. So some people like learning something new, in which case try a new system. If you don't like learning something new, then stick with what you got. Either expand on what you already have or look for ways to expand it into something slightly different as opposed to completely different. So that's my thoughts on it. Like I said, I would love to try new systems, but it's just really difficult just because of the time and money commitment that I would have to make content for it, which is where all my game time goes. So something like Shadespire is perfect for me, where I can build and I've got 4 models for a warband, and it doesn't expand. You know what I mean? That's the warband. That's what it is. There's no other chosen axes. I've got the chosen axes. And I can build and paint other warbands, which is fun, and I can do that, but it doesn't require me to do that. So something like that really fits into what I can do, which is perfect. Whereas some people who just don't have to worry about that kind of thing can go off and do whatever they want to, which is great for them. So those are my thoughts. I hope they've been helpful. If not, I don't know. Good luck, I guess. So, I hope you guys have all enjoyed it. I certainly have. I have been Phil the Glacial Geek as always. And until next time, have fun.